On today's Locked On NBA Game Night podcast, the New York Knicks swept the 76ers. Do they have enough of depth to compete in the NBA? We'll talk about that and more coming up.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Let's get it going on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day. We're here talking to you, recapping this Saturday night that was in the NBA with actual preseason games. The games are back in game night. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast from, because you everydayers make this show go. We have game night every single day, Monday through Sunday, and Locked On NBA Daily, Monday through Friday. So you have two pods for the price of one feed, $3.99 to listen to this great show. On these Saturday editions, you're going to have myself, Rylan, Stiles, Locked On Thunder, and Gavin, Schall, Locked On Knicks. Gavin, not only did we get basketball back today, not only are there games to break down, but your New York Knicks played today. They swept the 76ers in this pair of games. What did you see from New York in this game that left you really encouraged after their 113-104 win over Philly?
So we always caveat all this, right? It's preseason. The Knicks were playing on a different continent. The Sixers didn't have three of their five starters, including arguably their two most important ones, in Paul George and Joel Embiid. With that in mind, I think what we've learned is that Mike Brown is at the very least going to try more stuff than Tom Thibodeau. Whether or not that ultimately benefits the Knicks is in question, but I think I have to say that as kind of like the adverse effects of a potential medical drug in a commercial. But what I will say as your doctor is, like, I think this is clearly a good thing for the New York Knicks. They're playing with an incredible amount of pace. I have not seen Jalen Brunson leak out as many times as he did in 17 minutes in this game. Maybe over any other like previous week in his Knicks career. Like, he was constantly running after rebounds, pushing pace, throwing hit-ahead passes to Mikal Bridges, to OG Anunoby. That was a lot of fun. The pace was certainly present in the half court. And maybe the most significant thing was actions didn't die when Jalen's dribble did. Like last year, like you would be initiating possessions, especially in the playoffs, with 16 seconds left on the shot clock. Jalen starting with 20 seconds on the shot clock. And when he would stop dribbling, that would be it. And that'd be cue for someone else to take like a crazy bailout shot. They had a possession in this game where Jalen lost a dribble, calmly threw it over to Deuce McBride, sprinted over, set a screen for OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby curled off it, drove into the lane, drop off to Mitchell Robinson for two free throws. Like that was encouraging, that they could actually leverage the fact that this team is not Jalen Brunson and the Brunsonettes, right? They have a real depth of offensive talent. You've seen just a renewed vigor from Mikal Bridges. That might be the other really significant development, freed from the minute shackles of Tom Thibodeau in New York Twitter circles. He's called the whistleblower for calling that out last year. And he has just been hyperactive, right? Like, crashing for offensive rebounds, crashing at one point for a free throw rebound from beyond the three-point line, something I don't remember him doing last year, and then taking it the length of the court, nearly creating a bucket. On the other end, we see him attacking the rim. His shot looks a little bit better defensively. He's been very involved in these first two games. And just the schematic versatility on both ends. Like, Mike Brown is encouraging both Mitchell Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns to switch at times, to drop at others. And the Knicks are going to have to do a bunch of different stuff to mitigate the defensive weaknesses inherent to playing Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson 36 minutes a night in the game that matters. And it seems like Mike Brown, maybe a little bit more so than Tom Thibodeau, is up to that task.
You mentioned what I found the most interesting about these pair of games that they played, with the caveats of it being preseason. And obviously, you're going to play more guys in the preseason. That's just how it goes. You have expanded rosters. You can carry up to 21 guys until the end of training camp, end of preseason, to kind of get you through as camp buddies. But there is a difference in this New York roster versus last year's. And we'll see just how different they look once they make some decisions here in a couple of weeks. But the combination of Brown trying more things and just the different options that he has to try from a year ago, I walked away pretty encouraged with New York's depth, even down to their two-way guys. How did you feel as someone who intimately knows this team about the depth piece and if they have enough, or at least perhaps did it do anything to sway you one way or the other of being more comfortable or more confident in them possibly having enough depth to navigate not only the 82-game season, but you're hoping to play a whole nother season in the postseason and make it deep into June?
Yeah, I feel totally fine about the regular season. This is about as deep as they've been in a while. I say that they were supposed to be super deep 2 years ago, and then the 2-for-1 in the Karl Anthony Towns trade kind of doomed that a little bit. The year before, they were supposed to be super deep, and they end up moving off Quentin Grimes and losing a rotation player in that process. And they had obviously just a myriad of injuries in the 2024 playoffs. So there have been times in the Jalen Brunson era they've been very deep, but this feels like maybe the most complete roster they've had coming into a season. Just on a surface level, presuming Mitchell Robinson is going to be your starter, Josh Hart and Deuce McBride, just as good of a 6th and 7th man as you are going to have in the NBA. So that is just such an incredibly strong starting point. And then from there, it's kind of on the Knicks to find a reliable 8th and 9th. Gershon Yabusele, a little bit of a slow start on the offensive end. I think he's made just one shot through 2 games, but you certainly see the promise with him. Like he's another guy who's just like skilled enough to operate as a hub, which is something that Mike Brown is very clearly asking out of his bigs, right? Ability to play in the pinch post, ability to like operate as dribble handoff guys beyond the arc. I think Gershon's going to have no issues with that. He's going to fit in really well in the transition, heavy attack, showed off some rim protection in an area that was very weak from him last year with a nice block in this game. Obviously, he's super physical, can shoot, is skilled. I think he's perfectly fine as like your 8th or 9th guy. And then between Jordan Clarkson and Malcolm Brogdon, and you could also throw Landry Shamet in that mix, assuming the Knicks end up keeping all 3 of those guys, and they still have to make a trade if they want to have both Shamet and Brogdon on the roster. They should have a reliable 9th guy. Clarkson, like I go back and forth on like how much you want to be playing him in the playoffs. And I do think if the Knicks hit the Eastern Conference Finals, NBA Finals, that might just be a little bit too much of a detriment defensively, especially with the minutes that Brunson and Towns are going to be playing. But obviously he can create a shot against anyone, and that has value. And on the nights he's hitting, it's going to look good, and it's going to carry the Knicks through some games. Brogdon, a little bit more reliable, certainly looks a little slow, little creaky, showed off the old man game today with like a nasty pump fake that took Kelly Oubre out of his shoes, but he can shoot the ball. He can keep the trains running on time, still can make some clever plays defensively. Just an elite assist rate over the last 2 years, 95th percentile 2 years ago. I think like 84th percentile last year, like still a good shot creator, still an elite finisher around the rim. So I think Brogdon certainly has some stuff left in the tank. We saw Shamet. He was one of their better players in a limited role against the Indiana Pacers last year. And then you have some deep bench, like Ariel Hukporti, I think is an NBA level backup big. He's only going to get better. Fantastic fit for Mike Brown's system. Kevin McCullough Jr. showed me a little something in Summer League, showed me a little something today. Guys like Pacom Dottie and Tyler Kulik, one of them will probably get traded. I don't quite think they're ready for NBA rotation minutes, but as like 12th and 13th guys, like they're certainly more than can hold their own. So Rylan, that was probably more than you bargained for, but that was all a very long-winded way of saying, like, I do believe in the Knicks' depth. The single biggest thing for them to match the level of your Thunder is that like guys like Yabusele, Clarkson, and Brogdon are just playing their best basketball at the right time, but those guys have track records that suggest they can be okay in a very limited role.
Yeah, I walked away more encouraged with all the different optionality that this rotation can take throughout this season for New York. And then for Philadelphia, you mentioned that they didn't have 2 of their top 3 players, so their roster a little bit jaded there. They didn't even have Kyle Lowry playing in this. But they did have Therese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe, who are like the stars that actually played for Philadelphia. VJ's athleticism has popped, and that is a track record for him, going back to being a prospect, obviously. But seeing like his first bucket today being this massive jam, it was good to see him jumping out of the gym. The stats, you can't take too much away from the stats or the efficiency, but I did like how he translated his athleticism on both ends of the court. And then I also loved watching Kennedy Chandler ball out, and this is like an opportunity to see some of these guys who Kennedy Chandler's not going to be an NBA player or a rotational player for Philadelphia, but he is going to be a fun player to watch in the preseason to soak up some of these minutes. He had a great and one at the end of that game. But that's Philadelphia. That's New York. New York comes away with 2 wins on this.
Rylan, I want to just say one last thing before you wrap up this segment. I am all the way in on VJ Edgecombe. I think like
Oh,
he's obviously not a steal in that he was whatever the
right.
third pick in the draft, but was a steal in the sense that like Philly, with how they're built to win now, just had no business getting him. The guy is a professional, competitive killer on both ends of the floor. There have been reports that his jumpers look great. I thought like he was maybe his performance against the Knicks, like obviously I'm biased, but I thought it was maybe the single best performance I saw in Summer League last year. Like comes into the league, he's already like one of the best vertical athletes, to your point, in the NBA, knows how to play, well-schooled at Lehigh, well-schooled at Baylor. Like, I think that guy's going to be awesome. I wouldn't be surprised long-term if he ends up being the second best player in this draft. And Philly just has a loaded guard room between him, Maxey, Grimes, and of course, when they get Jared McCain back, like I don't know how they're going to sort out those minutes. Maybe Edgecombe plays some small forward, but I think he is an NBA player from day one, and he is going to be awesome long-term. And for a team whose long-term future is looking very dicey because of Joel Embiid's health and now Paul George's health and that crazy contract, they certainly have elements to be really encouraged about. And that's to say nothing of Tyrese Maxey, who I know you're on the same page with me. I think he's a bona fide top 30 player in the NBA. And I wouldn't be shocked if he made a run at like all NBA, certainly another all-star team this year.
And I mean, it's such a conundrum for Philadelphia. It's like, I love Therese Maxey and I love VJ Edgecombe and I love Jared McCain. And I also love what at the peak, of course, that they can do in Paul George and Joel Embiid. But it's just, are they going to be healthy? Like even down to McCain, is he going to be healthy? Like, what does this roster look like? Because there's so many ways that this can go. This can go with them being really good in the Eastern Conference because they get the right stroke of health, or going sideways again in the win column. So I'm very curious how Philadelphia pans out. But good showing over there. It was fun to have basketball back. We have more games to talk about, like Orlando taking on Miami. We'll head down to Orlando to figure out how that game went out. But first, I want to say right now, but your friends over at Monarch Money, folks, go check out Monarch Money today because Monarch Money is awesome. Most people can't even name their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. Whenever you don't have the full picture, you end up leaving money on the table. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal financing tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've been putting off your finances, don't worry. Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. That way you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear-cut data visuals, get smart categorizations of your spending, and feel in complete control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet, because I am not good at spreadsheets. I don't know how to do all the shortcuts and tips and tricks. Monarch handles everything for me, and I love the clear-cut data visuals, understanding where your money's going, what you're spending it on. Are you spending it on a bunch of subscriptions that have racked up over time? What's going on with your money? Monarch Money helps you out there. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the crack. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com on your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA. We're back on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast, taking you through the Saturday in the NBA. Let's head down to Orlando. What does Philip Rossman-Reich, host of Locked On Magic, think about this preseason opener against the Miami Heat?
This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, as the Orlando Magic get a preseason win over the Miami Heat in Puerto Rico, 126-118. And the score is, of course, not going to matter. The Magic starters were +1. That's the only thing that really matters. But what really matters, too, is that Jace Richardson was a perfect example of how this team is going to continue to evolve. Jace struggled in the first half, as you would expect a rookie to struggle in his first NBA game. But he came out with 13 points in the third quarter, helped the Magic erase the deficit and get back into the game and give themselves the chance to win. The Magic are a different offensive team. They've added Desmond Bane. They've added some pieces. They're trying to bring more motion, movement, and three-point shooting and speed into their game. It's going to take some time to get used to everything, but Paolo Banchero still looked like a bruising force, including 3 blocks in the game, as someone who's going to continue to evolve as a young player. And Desmond Bane started to find his footing in the second quarter as well. This Magic team still has work to do. They're still looking to improve. They're still looking to get better. But for a first preseason game after 4 days of practice, I think the Magic will be pretty happy.
I think that the Magic should be happy about where they're at with this preseason opener, because the way that, to me, you view preseason is just, can you get a glimpse of what things can translate into? How translatable is your production? For example, like we talked about with Kennedy Chandler, that's not product that you can't translate that to the actual NBA. That's a fun summer league story. With what the Magic did today, I think that you can take something away from their style of play. No Franz and no Jalen Suggs is a big deal. But what did Desmond Bane look like? And Desmond Bane looked exactly the part of what we've hyped him up to be with this offseason trade. He was getting downhill, and that getting downhill from him opened up playmaking avenues to set his teammates up for just wide open shots and free flowing this offense in a much cleaner way. This offense had way more intentionality. They had way more better shot quality than they did a year ago, and it stemmed from Desmond Bane. And so then you start to wonder, okay, well, you put Franz back in there, you put Suggs back in there. Then where does this offense take off to with Desmond Bane? You also get, of course, his three-point shooting, which has been the biggest talking point about Desmond Bane because this team is dreadful from beyond the arc. And so he can help you in that category as well. But his playmaking, I thought, really stood out in the 13 minutes he played in this game. And that, I think, is why Orlando should be really excited about this game.
Yeah, and I think another area he's a force, and I'm sure you noticed this against your Thunder because there were a number of plays that were jaw dropping to me. Just a level of athleticism. I maybe as someone who was more of an Eastern Conference guy did not know Desmond Bane had, but the dude is just like a bull going downhill in transition, right? Super strong, super determined, great footwork, right? Like has the ability to pick up his dribble like almost anywhere inside the free throw line or inside the 3-point line, find a way to the rim in 2 steps. Orlando was just 25th in transition points per game last season. Bane 33rd in the NBA on an individual level in fast break points per game last season. Like that is going to be an area he really helps them find easy buckets. You mentioned the spacing element in the half court. We cited the stat before, but Orlando last season, second worst 3-point shooting season for a team in the last 25 years of NBA basketball. And you add Bane, who for my money is a top like 6 at worst 3-point shooter in the league. Like it's not just the toe the line spacing, right? You have to guard him 30 feet and in. He is like a legitimate bomb threat from 30 feet out, 32 feet out, like just an absolute game changer on both ends. And also just like fits into the ethos that Orlando has already built, right? Like that toughness, that scrappiness. Obviously, no Jalen Suggs, no Franz Wagner, but those 4 guys together, and like Wendell Carter, obviously, really solid option as a 5th. He looks to be in fantastic shape. Like just a pain to play against. I think they're going to be a really good regular season team. I just want to shout out 2 of the young guys on the Orlando Magic. Tristan Da Silva, really fun start to this game. Like I don't know why. Like he made it his mission to make Andrew Wiggins have a tough night, even though Wiggins was making some shots on him too. Just had this confident ISO to open the game into a step back on Wiggins, and then absolutely cooked Wiggins on like an okie doke where he had a pump fake into like this reverse pivot, pirouette, balletic 1-foot layup. Like it was gorgeous. Probably really confident coming off winning Euros with Team Germany this summer. And then Jace Richardson, man, he was one of my favorite picks in the draft. So I'm biased and inclined to point out when he does well. But one of the most efficient players in college basketball last year, had a 13-point third quarter, 3 different threes, like one in the corner where he inbounded, got it right back, and just so confident, like quick, smooth release. Maybe this is just because he's a lefty, but it almost reminds me of Mike Conley a little bit, like how easily he gets it up. Not quite his dad, but like some easy ups around the rim. Like he's just someone who maybe not this year for Orlando, but they've been searching for that off the bench point guard, right? Anthony Black, who showed some flashes and got to the free throw line a lot in this game, obviously signed Tyus Jones, who I think ultimately is going to be too bad defensively to rely on in any kind of meaningful way beyond the regular season. Like if Richardson grows up really fast, he could contribute in the playoffs this year, but down the road, as he grows with this young Orlando team, like he might end up being the long-term, like 5th or 6th most important piece for this group. He's like the quintessential like NBA role-playing guard that you want, that can play off big creators and be super effective because of how good of a shooter he is, how smart he is, and how solid he'll be defensively.
And you look at this Magic team, and another reason for optimism is their depth. And obviously, like not everything's going to work out, but on any given night, you could see Richardson having a good game. You could see Jet Howard getting hot offensively as a bucket getter. You could see Anthony Black making game-changing defensive plays. Clearly, Suggs and Franz are more proven. They're gonna obviously inject things into this Magic team. And I think that they just have enough pieces that each and every night they can mix and match lineups and rotations that work on that given night and be a tough out every single game and rack up a lot of wins in this really bad Eastern Conference that the Magic should be able to take advantage of and set themselves up for postseason success. And then we had the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets, the game that I was most interested in to watch. Denver, played their actual starting five, Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Cameron Johnson, Aaron Gordon, and Jokic. I thought that this was a fun game. I thought that this was one of the more entertaining games that you can possibly get in the preseason. Minnesota was without Julius Randle, was without Anthony Edwards, but you got to see a glimpse of Rob Dillingham, who they're expecting to take a step forward this season. And you still had Dante DiVincenzo, Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels was still in there. So you got a lot in this game. You're mentioning Terrence Shannon Jr. and Jalen Clark, another two guys who are expected to elevate their game in the absence of Nickeil Alexander-Walker. But we did get our first glimpse at Denver, who's looked upon as the second biggest threat in the West behind Oklahoma City. And for good reason, as they retooled this roster. What do you think of the first experience with Jokic, with Johnson, and with this Denver team who ends up falling to Minnesota 126-116?
Yeah, I thought Minnesota was playing a little bit harder, and maybe that was a product of them not having their stars and having a little chip on their shoulder, something to prove. Obviously, it feels like every time Minnesota plays Denver, like they have a chip on their shoulders and something to prove. But they put up 40 points in the first quarter of this one, and just came out with like this electric attacking energy. And Denver, I think, didn't totally match that. They were maybe modeling themselves after Nikola Jokic in basketball games that don't really matter. A little laissez-faire, and I say that as Jokic in 19 minutes was 4 for 5, 6 for 6 from the free throw line, and put up 14, 5, and 5. Like that's a pretty good, or sorry, 14, 5, and 2. Pretty good in a game that like he clearly did not care about. And you saw like just Jokic's genius from the get-go, like had this like one-handed rebound and just this insane hit ahead pass to Brown where like he very few players in the NBA do this where it's almost a quarterback quality of like leading your guy streaking down the court ahead of a defender. I know that's not what you asked, but it just like some of the passes he threw were ridiculous. To me, the thing that stood out the most is the way the new guys are just smart enough to fit in with Nikola Jokic. Like Cam Johnson, like got a nice backdoor lob for a layup on their first connection of the game. There was another play where Jokic off a live dribble saw Jaden McDaniels cheating towards the lane a little bit and just ripped like a howitzer into the corner to Johnson, who barely had to dip in and just fired. Like it was in the perfect spot. Tim Hardaway, like you can see his ability, just having played so many years in the NBA, to leverage his gravity, generate an out-of-control closeout, and attack it and just keep the machine moving. And that's really what Denver, I think, was missing last year against teams like the Thunder. Like either they had vets who couldn't shoot, so they didn't draw those closeouts, or they're young guys that could shoot like Strawther obviously can do a little bit of that, but either don't have like the on-the-dribble juice, on the ball juice, or just like the savviness to like continually like beat a closeout, make the next pass. And against the truly killer elite defenses in the NBA, which the Thunder, obviously an all-time defense, you just need guys that can make that next play. And I think Cam Johnson qualifies. I think Tim Hardaway qualifies. Obviously, Valanciunas is like a different kind of threat, but like he's helpful. And Bruce Brown has proven at the highest levels in the NBA Finals that he knows how to play off Nikola Jokic, and he knows how to make that next pass, make that next play. His first shot back was a made three, which is encouraging. I think all those guys fit very well, even though Minnesota was the team that was like landing punches on this particular night.
Coming up, let's play our game of buy or sell, a Saturday night staple on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, I want to say right now, my good friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today because FanDuel's great with the NFL season in full swing. FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Go there right now and check them out today because even if you're not into the NBA, you can also into the NFL, you can check out the NBA lines where the Thunder are 8.5-point favorites on opening night against Houston. The NFL, though, has plenty of juice out there. Go visit them at FanDuel.com on the FanDuel app as well to get started. Your first $5 bet will bring you back $300 if it hits. The NFL will begin early on Sunday morning. Minnesota overseas has the Browns, and they have a 3.5-point spread advantage as the favorites over Cleveland. Go check them out today at FanDuel.com. We're back on Locked On NBA Game Night podcast. I'm Rylan, Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. That's Gavin, Schall, Locked On Knicks. Zion Williamson did play today. He played in Australia against Southeast Melbourne, and he looked really good. The pictures at training camp and media day generated a lot of hype, and the hype was warranted because he was moving great. Athletically, he was awesome, and in his 15 minutes of action, he was able to rack up 3 steals and 2 blocks with 9 rebounds and 8 points and a +10 in that span. Clearly not playing NBA players, not playing an NBA team, and playing in Australia. But it was just great to see him out there moving around. Jeremiah Fears was back shooting 50% from the floor on 12 points. He had a nice bounce back as a rookie. And so it was a good win for the Pelicans in this game. But Gavin, speaking of games, we have a game, buy or sell on NBA game night. And I want to take you to the first option. That's going to be in Golden State. Buy or sell, the Kuminga drama is over.
Sell. This is my all-time easiest sell that you've ever asked me. It is so obviously not over, and I don't know if that is going to manifest itself as public comments, because maybe I'm misremembering. I feel like Kuminga hasn't made a ton of public comments, and I know it came out kind of from both sides that like he doesn't really have a personal issue with Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr doesn't have an issue with him personally. It's more so just the situation. And this was not like one that was ever going to get resolved this offseason. Like Kuminga was basically like, way overpay me or give me an out, or like, and they met in the middle where Kuminga got his money, but the Warriors got their out where they have a team option heading into next year. Historically, like in his career over the last 2 years, like the Curry Green lineups have been significantly better with Jonathan Kuminga in, right? Plus 11.1 net rating over 900 minutes when he's on the floor with them, plus 3.5 when he's off. And like he's had a positive impact, but the addition of Jimmy Butler just made it inevitable that they were going to move off Kuminga, because it's so hard to justify, even with 3 players as good as Draymond, Jimmy, and obviously to a lesser degree, Jonathan Kuminga. Like it is so hard to justify playing 3 non-shooters around Steph. Obviously, bringing in Al Horford makes that a little bit more tenable, where in years past or last season specifically, they were kind of forced to have Quentin Post on the floor, even though he was by no means ready to be a rotation player on a title contender or a pseudo title contender. Horford obviously makes up for that and gives you another shooter, but it is still just a little bit challenging to see the vision with that lineup. If anyone can pull it off, it's like Steve Kerr and Steph Curry, but I still just think that there's ultimately no long-term future here for him on this team. And like, honestly, Rylan, with the way the roster shifted, what actually changes, even if Kuminga's improved, that would substantially shift his role on this Warriors team come playoff time. That's kind of what I keep coming back to. Like none of the variables have changed. How are the actors' reactions to the situation going to change?
I agree with you. I think that it's delaying the inevitable of a breakup in Golden State, whether that's at the trade deadline or next summer. So we will still be talking Jonathan Kuminga. Buy or sell? I think that this is a fun one. Buy or sell 2 of the top 4 teams in last year's draft. So of those teams, and you have to keep in mind the context of the postseason being the play-in tournament as well. It is the Dallas Mavericks, San Antonio Spurs, 76ers, and Charlotte Hornets. 2 of those 4 teams make the NBA postseason, play-in tournament included as postseason. Can 2 of those 4 teams make it, Gavin?
Yeah, I'm gonna say 3 do ultimately. I'm pretty confident in the Sixers, and that's less so me being like high on the Sixers roster or coaching or mostly health, and more so me being low on the rest of the Eastern Conference, and just kind of trusting like the games they do get from Joel Embiid and Paul George. They should, even if those guys are not the apex versions of themselves anymore, they should win a whole lot of those, just because of what the East is and what the level of competition is, and the possibility that like the Pacers kind of take a turn towards tanking second half of the year, the possibility the Celtics, if they have a really poor start to the year, take a turn towards tanking. Like I do think Philly will presumably be actively trying to win this year. As we mentioned, their guard rotation, if nothing else, is elite. The Hornets, I don't think will make the play-in. The West is where this gets really interesting. So let me like talk you through my logic and tell me if you agree with this. I would say locks in the Western Conference. I'm just going through this in order that ESPN has the preseason standings. Minnesota, lock to make the playoffs. Golden State, lock to make the playoffs. Houston, lock. Clippers, lock. I'm on 4 teams. No, 5 teams. Sorry, I miscounted. Blazers, no. Kings, no. Spurs, no. Thunder, lock. Nuggets, lock. Lakers lock. So I just listed 9 teams. So I guess I'm contradicting myself here and say both of them can't make it. I guess what I'm arguing is that one of them will. And I think I think they're clearly in a different category than the other teams competing for that final. Oh, sorry, I did miscount. That leaves 2 spots left. I think they're in a different category than the other teams competing for that last spot. Dallas just has so much size across the board. I think they're going to be ridiculously good defensively, even if their backcourt with D'Angelo Russell and Klay Thompson is maybe a little bit dicey. I think the Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, Derek Lively quartet is just going to smother teams with Cooper Flagg, obviously, thrown into that mix. Maybe they get Kyrie back a little bit before the All-Star break. Once he's there, they should just take off and be a really, really good basketball team. They looked awesome, like the one half of basketball we got with Anthony Davis healthy and Kyrie playing last year. So maybe they pick up where they left off there. Obviously, Coop just adds to that. San Antonio, this is almost purely, which is a dumb thing to base it off of, like the clips I saw of Wemby in their intra-squad scrimmage, but he looks like revolutionary Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with a 3 and a bag. Like he looks like he might just end up being the second best player in the NBA this year. And if he's anything close to that and he becomes the force we all thought he could in the draft, I just think they're in a different category than all the other teams competing for that spot, even though I really like the Blazers and obviously Memphis still has a solid infrastructure.
I'm going to take this as a buy as well. And I'm going to say it's a slight step forward of, I think that there's a non-zero chance that all 4 of them can make the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, clearly, like my whole rabbit hole this morning is going to be how many times have the 4 teams in the top 4 of the NBA draft went into the season thinking that they can go to the playoffs. Because realistically, while everyone's 0-0, there are teams who have 0% chance of making the playoffs. I think that the Hornets and the Sixers have a life in the East. And you obviously pointed out just how much life the Mavs and the Spurs have in the West, even though it's a very tough conference. The Hornets, of course, the odd man out in terms of percentage wise, but I don't think that they're at 0. I think that the young core can click enough and just win enough games in a bad conference to be the top 10 team in the Eastern Conference, to where I think that the percentage of this foursome is higher than most who drafted 1, 2, 3, 4 in the NBA draft the season before. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how this season shakes out. We'll have it for you all season long on Locked On NBA Game Night. Go find Gavin, Locked On Knicks. You can find me, Locked On Thunder. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.